everyone back. We will resume our meeting. We are on agenda item 16, capital improvement needs assessment. I will turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Thanks, Chair Fletcher. This is Helen. I'd like to start by making a few introductory comments because we've gotten a lot of email and confusion out there, and I want to do have a reset and also do a little bit of background on this because I don't want anyone to think that we are trying to do a backroom, push this through in the dark kind of process. It is absolutely the opposite. So I'd like to spend a few minutes to try to clarify for the public's benefit all the things that we do in terms of outreach that informs the document that's before you. And then I also want to publicly acknowledge that we can do better. Clearly we can, so I'm going to talk about that also as well. So let me just start by giving you some background on the fact that the CENA is a 5-year planning document, and it's informed throughout the year with a lot of public input. For example, board members provide us input based on meetings they've had in their districts about their needs and wants. That's where things like dangerous intersections requiring stoplights or roundabouts that need stop signs, all the things like rec centers, intergenerational campuses, libraries, other community priorities, that's where they funnel into us. We also have numerous meetings throughout the year with parks advisory groups and patrons that talk about ball fields, trails, bike parks, picnic areas, playground equipment, and other park amenities that they'd like to see in their communities. We work frequently with our environmental partners to receive feedback on the multiple species conservation program and sustainability projects. We meet regularly with friends of the library and patrons to discuss library needs, community locations, designs, community rooms, and other library services. We've had dozens and dozens of meetings in communities regarding behavioral health facility needs, including our crisis stabilization units, the 3rd Avenue Behavioral Health Hub, the PUF at Tri-City Hospital, and much more. These are also vetted with significant input from the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. We also have health and life safety needs that are discussed with communities in terms of our Livewell centers, sheriff substations, fire stations, domestic violence assistance centers. All this is outreach to the communities for these critical projects, and it's continuous. For example, the Southeast Livewell Center. We had 5 years of community planning that led up to the groundbreaking activity that occurred last October. And more recently, the Youth Transition Center, the juvenile campus in Kearney Mesa, where we just cut the ribbon and are now embarking upon phase 2, that's had similar engagement, this time though with an added emphasis on youth input. Specific to the parcel on I-15, we had board action to review that parcel and return with potential uses as part of the CENA process. And specific to many of our major maintenance projects, these are critical safety issues for our employees, our customers, our inmates. Much of the maintenance requirements were identified in annual State Board of Correction inspections and most recently in the state audit of our jails, but we've also had the grand jury and other inputs and our own facilities assessment of what our needs are in our own facilities for major maintenance. We also have individual board letters that board members docket that oftentimes readjust funding priorities. We had one last budget cycle where the Other Side Academy was canceled and replaced with the Del Mar Bridge project, a park in Escondido, and community center in Mira Mesa after feedback from their constituents. So these are just a few of the many outreach activities and ongoing input from board members and community groups that occur to inform the CENA. Now the CENA takes all that input and puts it into one planning document for tracking purposes, but not for funding purposes. And we use it as we look to develop our 5-year strategic plan and our operational plan, also known as the budget. That's the mechanism for funding capital projects. I would also note that all but a handful of the projects have been on the CENA for multiple years. They've been reviewed and developed publicly for years. There are a few new park projects that have been added this year from non-general fund dollars that we've been able to secure, including funding for Smuggler's Gulch, and also an ARPA Community Gardens item that was vetted as part of the 5 outreach ARPA sessions we conducted last year. So those are some of the numerous other outreach steps that have led to projects being placed on the CENA. Now, I think there's a bigger question there. Where does the public have a chance to weigh in on the totality of the CENA? And that occurs during the budget process and our community budget meetings, which begin every year in March. We reached out to CPI and ISDF last month to schedule this year's review. In addition to that meeting, we conduct budget meetings in each district in coordination with each supervisor's office. Then we have 2 full days of pre-budget hearings in May, and of course, our budget hearings in June, which include both day and evening meetings. And all that culminates in budget change letters and final deliberations and budget adoption at the end of June. So I hope that gives everyone a better sense of the extensive SENA process and outreach efforts. However, as I said at the beginning, we can do better. We can do more. So we want to engage with our residents, and we want to work with the community to review Board Policy G16, and we'll gather those suggestions on how to better ensure customer and community engagement. And then we'll gather that up, and if we have policy revisions that we want to implement, we will certainly bring those back to the board at a future board meeting to discuss and then have the board take action on. So with that, let's get down to it, and let's talk about the SENA document before us today. And so, Ebony and Marco, let me turn it over to you. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for that context, Helen. Chair Fletcher and members of the board, modern and well-maintained infrastructure is key to our ability to deliver exceptional services to the public and provide high-quality workspace to county employees. The SENA is reviewed and revised annually to ensure alignment with the board's initiatives and the county's program needs. The recommendations before your board today will enable staff to move forward with short and long-term activities to align project timelines with anticipated funding sources, which will ensure that the highest priority projects of the community and the board are executable. This planning includes maximizing resources within and outside of the general fund and careful planning to ensure project readiness. Here to discuss these and other SENA-related topics are Marco Medved, the Director of the Department of General Services, and Brian Albright, the Director of the Department of Parks and Recreation. Marco?
Thank you, Ebony. The SENA is a planning document that includes a comprehensive list of all planned capital projects over a 5-year period. The list of projects on SENA builds on the board's priorities and supports county program and service delivery. The capital project involves the acquisition, new construction, expansion, or major renovation of a county facility. The resulting or new or renovated facility will typically have an economic life of 50 years or more. The SENA is not a financial document and has no fiscal impact, but is central to the development of the capital program within the operational plan or budget. The SENA is a continuous process, a forward-looking cycle with several inputs. The primary inputs are your board initiatives such as equity and service provision, the behavioral health continuum of care, rehabilitative youth services, fire protection and community resilience, access to parks, and many sustainable initiatives. Strategic facility plans and parks capital investment model also help us develop program portfolios according to community needs and physical condition. Such efforts are underway for parks, sheriff, non-detention and detention facilities, county fire, libraries, and the regional centers. Each summer and fall, the capital priorities derived from these sources are then integrated into a draft 5-year plan that it gets finalized through a series of reviews by program departments such as the group executive offices. Initial board guidance was solicited in September this year, and departments integrate this input into the SENA process or other appropriate programs. The final plan is then brought to your board, typically provides for a 2-step process that includes pre-construction and construction for each planned project. In support of the county's climate action plan, sustainability is woven into all new capital delivery. Capital projects incorporate the procurement of land for conservation, leadership in energy and environmental design, embodied carbon reduction, zero net energy goals, electric vehicle infrastructure, and renewal of existing infrastructure. With a focus on taking care of what we have, this year's SENA includes 8 major rehabilitations or renewals. The SENA we're submitting to you today includes $344 million of new, unfunded, or partially funded capital projects that can be referred to the operational plan for funding consideration in the coming fiscal year. The county's anticipated capital funding needs across the 5-year planning horizon total over $1 billion. Currently, the county's portfolio contains 88 fully funded with appropriations over $700 million in various stages of planning, design, construction, and completion. And will now provide a project overview. The CENA identifies 14 projects with a funding requirement of $344 million in fiscal year 22-23, as you see here on the slide. 5 of these projects are focused on the renewal of existing county assets to include the County Administration Center, the building, George Bailey Detention Facility, the Hall of Justice, North County Regional Center, and the Health Services Complex, which will return to your board later this fiscal year for execution authorization. Another 5 of these projects support the county's sustainability initiatives with requests for land conservation in MSCP, dredging of Smuggler's Gulch in Tijuana River Valley, access to community-produced food in the Food Access Initiative, the expansion of EV charging infrastructure, and planning for zero-net energy upgrades to the Fallbrook Library. In addition, 2 projects, the Central Region Behavioral Health Hub and Edgemore Psychiatric Unit, further the county's commitment to expanding the continuum of care network. The remaining 2 projects, planning for a new fire station in Jacumba and land acquisitions for a new sheriff station off the I-15 and SR 76, will strengthen public safety systems. Review of the general plan, zoning ordinance, and deed restriction associated with the Caltrans property at the I-15 and SR 76 intersection do not allow housing or residential density, but does, however, permit essential services like a sheriff station. DGS completed a total of 8 projects valued at over $184 million last year. Of note is the completion of Phase 1 of the Youth Transition Campus. This LEED Gold project used evidence-based practices to provide a supportive environment and rehabilitative services to youth in custody. The portfolio of recently completed projects also includes, in addition to the county's behavioral health network, with the North Coastal Crisis Stabilization Unit in Oceanside. In support of public safety, we completed an emergency vehicle training course, rebuilt a probation center in North Park, and rehabbed fire stations in Palomar Mountain and Sunshine Summit. In spirit of taking care of what we own, we renovated our aged fleet garage and road maintenance station in San Marcos. DGS currently manages 11 projects that are under construction with appropriations of $360 million. The Southeastern Livewell Center broke ground this last fall. This facility will be a one-stop shop for community services, including behavioral health, public health, restorative justice, and a family resource center. It will also serve as a hub for community meetings, educational opportunities, and workforce training. The contractor is making great strides to meet and exceed local contracting and disabled veteran hiring goals with over $6 million of commitments from businesses within the project's 4 local zip codes. Phase 2 of the Youth Transition Campus is in design, and construction is set to begin in the spring. It will include a 72-bed temporary residential placement facility, which includes education buildings, a small office building to house court-related operations. Major renovation of the County Administration Center is underway, with improvements currently on the 2nd floor and continuing on to the 1st floor this year. Roofing and exterior painting will start in April and wrap up in March of '23. As a result, you'll see the building encapsulated in scaffolding to support this process in 7 phases. Our efforts to convert and modernize former volunteer fire stations and improve firefighting capabilities continues with the construction of fire stations on Mount Laguna and East Otay Mesa, and the phased build-out of the County Fire Training Center in Rancho San Diego. The inmate transfer tunnel, which connects the central jail to the new state courthouse, will complete this May. And notable HHSA projects currently in construction include the Tri-City Psychiatric Health Facility, which breaks ground this spring, and the addition of a psychiatric unit to the Edgemore Skilled Nursing Facility. Both projects are anticipated for completion in '23. Pre-construction efforts include site programming, identification of project risk factors, and development of budget quality estimates. Currently, DGS manages 13 pre-construction projects, including the Central Region Behavioral Health Hub at 3rd Avenue in Hillcrest. DGS is collaborating with UCSD and Behavioral Health to develop the program for a facility that will be designed to accelerate the transition from behavioral health crisis to continuous and chronic care management. Additional pre-construction funding of $20 million is identified for 22-23 to complete design and bring a construction manager on board. A few other projects moving through the pre-construction process are the replacement and relocation of the county's aging health service complex, the capital renewal of the Hall of Justice and the George Bailey Detention Center, as well as a centralized animal shelter located in Santee to better serve the unincorporated area. Communities across San Diego County will see numerous improvements to our libraries in the near future. We're currently in design for expansions at Julian and Rancho San Diego libraries, and in the planning phase for Forest Ranch, as well as a new library and park system in Casa de Oro. Other notable community projects include a new behavioral health facility in East County and a family resource center in Ramona. Now I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Marco. The Parks Capital Program accounts for 106 of the 139 projects in the CENA and a total of approximately $420 million. To identify capital needs, Parks uses a capital investment model that analyzes park access and acreage in each community, sustainability factors and equity in relation to the availability or lack of recreation amenities in the communities that we serve. We also engage community stakeholder groups to help identify local and regional priorities. The 5-year plan for parks is balanced to ensure we have capacity to complete a large number of projects each year. And where possible, DPR seeks grants to supplement county funding. So far this fiscal year, DPR has completed 7 capital projects at approximately $26 million. Here's a quick look at a few of those projects completed so far this year. The Chula Vista Bike Park is the first active recreation project in the western side of Otay Valley Regional Park. It serves primarily residents of Chula Vista and South San Diego. The Lincoln Acres project doubled the size of the existing park and added new recreation amenities in an historically underserved area, including an open playfield, picnic areas, exercise stations, and a community garden. The Otay Lakes Recreational Amenities Project constructed new climbing boulders and completed design for improving the underground infrastructure to support the new group campground and special events area that was opened this fall. In Don DeSalt Park, located in a densely populated Fallbrook neighborhood, was improved with a new playground, exercise stations, accessible pathways, and energy-efficient security lighting. DPR currently has 11 projects that are under construction, with a total value of over $40 million. These projects include new parks, expansion of existing parks, security improvements, major asset replacements, and sustainability initiatives. Some examples of park projects currently under construction include the restoration of Lindo Lake, which is the county's only natural lake. The Phase 1 East Basin will be complete this summer, preparing the way to move water out of the West Basin and complete the restoration. In addition to deepening the lake, the project will also improve habitat and add new amenities, including a fishing pier and bird watching stations. Ildica Park is a half-acre new park in Spring Valley that adds new recreation opportunities to an underserved area in the Spring Valley community. The park includes play and exercise areas and a community garden that will open next month. San Diego Botanic Garden is a 37-acre urban oasis with 4 miles of trails and the West Coast's largest children's garden. Currently under construction is the Pacific Promenade and the Bamboo Garden. And the Guahomie Sewer Improvement Project replaces underground sewer mains and reconfigures the sewer system to allow for full hookup sites at the campground, which will further increase revenue at one of our campgrounds that already has some of our highest occupancy rates. There are roughly 82 parks projects in pre-construction with an estimated value of $195 million. This slide shows the projects in the planning and design phases. The portfolio includes the creation of new parks and amenities in underserved areas, critical infrastructure enhancements, trail systems for county preserves, and expansion of revenue-generating facilities like campgrounds. Some examples of major park projects currently in pre-construction include 3 new community parks and an expansion of the county's highest-use campground. Bonsall Community Park will be the first county park in Bonsall and is part of the larger San Luis Rey River Park. It will feature a variety of amenities, including athletic fields, sports courts, picnic areas, skate park and bike park areas, a dog park, and multi-use trails. Calavo Park will be a new park in Spring Valley near high-density housing, again with a variety of recreation amenities. Sweetwater Summit Campground expansion will add 34 campsites and photovoltaic carports to the existing parking area. The improvements will ensure the campground covers 100% of its operating costs. And 4G Park will provide a new dog park, playground, picnic area, and restroom to the community. I'll turn it back over to Ebony now to summarize the recommendations.
Thank you, Brian. The recommendations before your board today are to approve the CENA as drafted and to refer it to the Chief Administrative Officer for funding and timelines for implementation of individual projects. At this time, it's anticipated that general fund resources, which your board has the discretion over, will be focused on renewal of existing county assets and continuing existing sustainability initiatives. Restricted resources outside of the general fund will also be maximized to advance the essential CENA projects. Staff will continue to monitor general fund resource availability, and if further funding becomes available within the near term, projects that are currently planned in the out years of the CENA may be accelerated and incorporated into the CAO's 22-23 recommended budget. Today's action does not approve funding of projects. Final funding recommendations and associated actions will occur through the budget process. This concludes the briefing, subject to your board's questions.
Thank you. Let's go to our public speakers in this item, and then I know we'll have board members that will have comments and questions. We'll come back to board members. Let's call forward our public speakers first.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 15 requests to speak by phone on item 16. Also note for the record that we received 36 e-comments, 23 in favor, 10 in opposition, and 1 neutral. Any members of the public that requested to speak on item 16 by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. We'll ask you to please begin by stating your name for the audio record. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll begin with our first caller.
Hi, good morning, Chair Fletcher, supervisors, and staff. My name is Tommy Howell. I serve as a San Diego County Planning Commissioner, and I'd like to speak in favor of the CENA. I'm a resident of Mira, Mesa, and an enthusiastic supporter of the transfer of the Epicenter from the city to the county. And my Mira Mesa neighbors and I truly appreciate the leadership of Supervisor Lawson Reamer and her team on this matter. The Epicenter was opened back in 1999 across from Mira Mesa High School as a coffee house and an after-school locale for kids. So they had a safe space to go after school, and it was a handy spot for mom and dad to pick them up afterwards, being in the same parking lot as the Mira Mesa Senior Center. If you talk to anyone who attended Mira Mesa High School from 1999 to 2015, they'll have a story about the Epicenter, and it's almost always a very positive one. But over time, the Epicenter also became a venue for local arts and theater productions and workshops and evolved into a cultural center for our diverse Mira Mesa community. But sadly, its closure by the city in 2016, after the facility's concessionaire left, sent the Epicenter structure into a downward spiral of abandonment, and the toll that abandonment has taken on the building is considerable. According to a recent survey of the site, the damage is much worse than first estimated. We expected the county to include an additional $4.3 million needed to complete restoration of the facility in the upcoming 22-23 fiscal year budget. Unfortunately, when the county released its preliminary capital project list, funding for the Epicenter was delayed to the following year. The Epicenter is an urgent priority for our Mira Mesa community. I'd like to ask you to prioritize needed funding for this project in the CENA now so students and residents in our community can once again utilize this unique neighborhood asset, meeting space, and facility. Thank you for your kind consideration.
Thank you. We'll hear from the next caller.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Hi, my name is Jean-Louis, and I'm a local community organizer here in San Diego. I'm also the president of the Group from Before. But our community have been advocating for the Epicenter to be revival, but I'm really disheartened to hear that it's being delayed on the funding. This center has been part of the community for as long as I remember, even myself attending some of the concerts there way back in the day. and I was really looking forward to that. I know during the pandemic, it was super hard for a lot of youth, and knowing that the space reopened, gonna give us, give the community opportunity to reconnect with each other. And I would really highly encourage the board supervisor, please put forward the funding for this, follow through with what you already promised the community, and make sure that this is this go forward and get the funding. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Angelina Corsani from the Center on Policy Initiatives, item 16.
Go ahead.
Oh, hi. My name is Angelina Corsani from the Center on Policy Initiatives and the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition. I'm calling today to highlight major concerns regarding the Capital Improvements Needs Assessment, or CINA, coming before the Board of Supervisors today. Despite the fact that this item represents over $1 billion in planned investments of public dollars over the next 5 years, no public input was incorporated into the development of this plan. The current CINA development process is not transparent, it's not democratic, and it does not align with the framework for the future established by this board. There's no clear process or criteria for how projects are evaluated and chosen for funding. This means that there's no way to ensure alignment with board and community priorities. For example, there are almost $250 million of projects related to the carceral system, including the construction of 3 new sheriff stations. Yet at the same time, the county is in the middle of an alternatives to incarceration assessment, which is intended to reduce the jail population and divert individuals from contact with law enforcement. Moving forward, I hope this board will support ISDF's call for a transparent and democratic CINA development process. Plans to invest public dollars need to happen in the open, not behind closed doors, and should ensure community input and alignment with other areas of county work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Kent Lee. I'm a member of the Mira Mesa Community Planning Group, a founder and co-chair of the San Diego Asian Pacific Islander Coalition, as well as the executive director of Pacific Arts Movement. First off, I just want to take a moment to thank the Board of Supervisors, especially Supervisor Lawson-Remer, for your support last year in terms of allocating funding and support of the revitalization of the Epicenter as a teen and community center serving the Mira Mesa community. I think given the center's length of time sitting vacant and the critical opportunity we have to utilize it in serving one of San Diego's most diverse and multicultural communities, that it's critical that we ask you today to move up funding for the Epicenter to ensure that our Mira Mesa and surrounding communities are able to utilize that moving forward. Especially as a member of the API Coalition, seeing the many impacts that we've seen during the pandemic over the course of the last 2 years, I think this is a critical opportunity to serve a portion of the population that is significantly represented here in the Mira Mesa community, and that is really looking for a space in which we can coalesce and work together to share arts, culture, activities that would benefit our community as a whole. So thank you again to the supervisors for your consideration, and we ask you to go ahead and move that funding up to this fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Audra, you guys, oh my gosh. So yeah, we could do better, right? But yeah, let's everybody thank the Board of Tyrants for destroying the county while pretending to be the, first ones that do everything. I don't know, Nathan, is your handler's vehicle outside that's running environmentally friendly? I don't know. It's like he's doing that for hours, just sitting with a vehicle on outside. I mean, maybe you should think about that. I mean, you're driving an SUV. Maybe he should be driving an electric vehicle. I don't know. But you guys and your, behavioral health crap, the fire, the sheriff, it's like, just trying to put all these things into our lives. Well, how about instead of building things that you can't, like projects you can't complete, because, I mean, you do have a $22.6 million negative impact on the county so far. But, yeah, keep spending billions of dollars to do things that, like someone said, there's been no, community input on whether or not this plan needs to take place. How about you plant a bunch of trees? I don't know, that will, recycle the carbon and, access the geowater that's in the earth that is unlimited instead of, telling people that they need to have talking cars, Jim? That's very weird, okay? They don't talk to each other. And, the fact that you don't even have any kind of charging stations anywhere. What are you going to do with all these vehicles once they have to be, taken off the roads because they're gases? And, all of the things you want to implement for global climate change is totally toxic to the earth. I mean, what are you, solar panels just to make them is toxic. The windmills, they even use diesel. So what are you guys actually doing that's improving the community? How about you help people plant living yards, something that they
Thank you. Your time is up.
Take and
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller. For the next caller, your device might be muted.
Hello?
Yes, please proceed.
Hi, this is Jason Robo. Hello, cowards. Thank you for skipping agenda items and depriving us from looking you in the eyes in person. Capital, interestingly enough, the etymology is of or pertaining to the head. So you guys like getting a lot of head, I guess. Big head. Oh, no, they're out of order.
oh my gosh!
And revenue, the etymology of revenue is to come. So that's fitting with the head analogy. I think this is just a capital crime. That's why we have volunteer firefighters. What are you guys volunteering for? What, taking money? That's not volunteerism. And yeah, I suggest reading an actual book. I don't know if anybody's read anything recently. You never respond to anything unless you want to accuse me of being racist. But The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs talks about how you build cities so there actually is a community, and then the people protect the community because they're a part of it. You don't just build a bunch of business parks and shopping centers with a bunch of people who are apathetic and don't care. And yeah, you just want to increase revenue. Yeah, you want to increase your coming. It's like you're kind of backwards happiness index. Because people aren't happy. They're unhappy with this messed up backward society. You're full of crap like a colostomy bag. You're just some shared democratic dictators, and all you do is look down at your phones when you do get the pleasure of standing there in your little chambers where you're crapping on us in your chamber pots. It's like your look down syndrome. You don't even look us in the eyes. So yeah, build some edible trees.
It appears we have lost that caller. We'll go to the next caller.
Hi, this is Barry Voss, President of the Mira Mesa Town Council. I would like to once again thank Supervisor Terloff and Reamer for the funding that has been put forth so far to bring the Epicenter back online. That building has served the community greatly and could be a much welcomed asset, especially for the youth of our community. Unfortunately, due to the long-term deterioration, more funding is needed, and we are quite disappointed to find out that that funding will be held back another year. The building is currently becoming
Looks like that caller hung up. We'll go to the next caller. If that caller would like to call back, we'll get to you to finish your comments.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Denise Torres. I'm a community representative for San Diego City Council District 6. On behalf of Council Member Chris Cate and the District 6 community, I am here to share the importance of fully renovating the Mira Mesa Teen Center, also known as the Epicenter, and prioritizing funding in the upcoming budget. Before its closure in 2016, the Epicenter had been a part of the Mira Mesa community for over 17 years. It was a place of refuge for young people to explore their musical talents while sharing their creations to others who share the same passion for music and the arts. For others, it was where they seized opportunities to grow and develop personal progress through the guidance and counseling of mentors at the Epicenter. This project will definitely benefit the community of Mira Mesa and strengthen the partnership between the city and the county. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Now hear from our next caller.
Hi, I'm Jeff Stevens. I live in Mira Mesa, and I chair the Mira Mesa Community Planning Group. The CENA plan contains money for renovation of the Mira Mesa Epicenter Youth and Community Center. However, we found out that it's insufficient for the work that needs to be done. Please support the additional funding needed for this important project in FY 2022 to 23. This building, which was the old Mira Mesa Library, was converted to a teen center called the Epicenter that operated until 2016. Since then, it has stood vacant and is deteriorating. It's an ideal location in the center community across the street from Mira Mesa High School. Please support this project to reactivate a critically important community resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to the next caller.
Hi, Barry Voss from the Mira Mesa Town Council calling back in. We had a little cell glitch. As I was saying, we thank you for the funding that's already been committed, but our concern is that with the funding pushed off to the year 23-24, the deterioration that has been going on and the use by homeless individuals in the community will cause even more damage and in greater cost, and also delay for another year the opportunity for our youth to have a place to gather. Being centrally located right across the street from Mira Mesa High School, it is urgent that we bring the Epicenter back online to serve our youth and serve the community. We ask you to consider once more pushing that funding forward to fiscal year 22-23. Thank you.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Candy, and my name is Candy. Hi, I am the Executive Director of Asian Solidarity Collective. I'm in full support of the Mira Mesa Epicenter revitalization. In a community where there is a high population of Asian and Asian American communities who are underserved, it is crucial that our communities have resources we need and deserve. In a time of increased anti-Asian racism, Asian communities are in need of safe spaces as they need resources, solutions, and long-term investments for their critical care and needs that they deserve. The Mira Mesa Epicenter is one pathway too important, especially in a time where there is great need. Also in a time when we've lost so much, we need to find joy, places of joy, spaces of care, inspiration, and community where we can find a sense of self and camaraderie with one another. It's important that we start thinking abundantly rather than in scarcity. Dream and move big, as our communities deserve to make every dream big and real, because our needs and our experiences are big and real. It's time to really support this plan and funding. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Wesley Kwat of the Asian Youth Association. I'm calling today just to support the funding for this fiscal year for the Epicenter in Mira Mesa. This site has been sitting empty for nearly 6 years now. I think it has the potential to be a great asset for the community, and I urge the board to support this funding. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Now hear from the next caller.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Judith Howell, and I'm a member of the Invest in San Diego Families Coalition and a resident of District 4. I'm calling in today to speak on the Capital Improvement Needs Assessment process, or CENA. There are almost $250 million worth of planned investments in the carceral system in this 5-year plan, including 3 different sheriff stations, while there's ongoing advocacy and research to determine alternatives to policing. Please support the ISDF's coalition's proposed changes to create a transparent and democratic CENA process to include, but not limited to, the following: defining clear criteria and having the analysis and selection process widely shared, and revision should be referred to the CAO before it's incorporated into the recommended operational plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
All right, let's go to board member comments. Let me see who would like to go first here.
Sure. I have a number of things to say. First of all, I just want to thank all the callers. Obviously, there's a lot at stake and a lot of items that are put forward in the CENA budget and the CENA process. And it's important to engage on those and to have transparency and have a real conversation. We have a lot of important projects happening at the same time, and I think we're doing a good job of getting shovels in the ground so we can deliver for our communities. That said, I just have some remarks about a couple pieces of this process. One in particular, which is a specific project on the CENA list, the Mira Mesa Epicenter, as referenced by quite a number of callers. For those who might not be familiar, the Epicenter is a youth and teen-focused community center that has been vacant and left in the state of disrepair since 2016. This is despite its ideal location across the street from Mira Mesa High School in a highly diverse, economically underserved community with very strong AAPI representation and a very well documented shortage of recreational facilities. Last year, I was very happy that this board took action to transfer operations of the Epicenter to the county so we could do the right thing and finally begin to renovate the building and bring youth programming back to Mira Mesa. The building was on track to undergo renovations this coming year, but I see that it's not currently included in the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 CENA list. And I think delaying another year, we risk further damaging and deteriorating the building and increasing renovation costs and delaying what services this community so desperately needs. So I do have a question in this regard for Helen, for our CAO. My understanding is that this would be included in this year's fiscal budget if and hopefully, fingers crossed, when we get our FEMA reimbursements likely next month in April or May. Is that Helen? Is that a correct understanding that that it will be still potentially possible to include this in this coming year, given likely FEMA receipts?
Yes, Supervisor, it would not be in the budget document itself, but it would be in the change letter, contingent upon the FEMA reimbursement funds coming in, which we do expect to have in time to include this. And there's some other projects also that could also be included in the change letter. So we would definitely be looking at that and bringing it forward to the board at that time through the change letter process.
Great. I mean, so I think with that in mind, I just want to comment, very clear that it's certainly my intent to fight to make sure that this is in this year's budget. And I think we can hold that fight for another day, assuming that we're gonna get our FEMA reimbursements in time to have that on the change letter, and hopefully there won't be a fight. Hopefully we'll be able to make this move forward because I think this is just such an important priority to the community, and I know something that my constituents have been very clear is their top priority for really thousands and thousands of young people in Mira Mesa. So thank you so much, Helen. I appreciate that. And then I guess I just want to make a broader remark about the process we have for developing the CENA list. I do appreciate the time you spent to sort of walk through where input comes from, but also acknowledging that we can do better to create avenues and processes for a community to have input into the CENA process and to really be able to wrap our heads collectively around these big multi-billion-dollar decisions that we're making as part of the budget process. So I guess the question I have for you, Helen, is, is there what is the process you envision to kind of work with community stakeholders over the next 30, 60, 90 days to kind of improve our CENA transparency process in light of some of the comments and feedback that we've received in this cycle?
We have, Supervisor Lawson-Remer and other board members, we have scheduled budget meetings with ISDF, CPI, some of the ones that reached out with some concerns about the process. So we will receive input from them also on the capital process at that time. We also will take input as we meet on the budget. And then what we would like to do then is come back with some amendments possibly to the board policy on the CENA process. And that way it's very clear, and we also would have a more formal process for reaching out, I think, one more time collectively prior to presenting the next CENA document next year. But the next steps in the process of gathering that feedback will be done in our individual meetings that we're having, both with CPI, ISDF, and our community budget forums. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful. I mean, I think from my perspective, it's really one of the things I'm most excited about in this new board is our shift towards greater transparency and community participation. So I think we're all in agreement that public dollars of the scale require public input and accountability. I think we also need a little bit more transparency and clarity on the criteria that we're using and that can be used to prioritize projects over each other. And I've definitely heard over the last couple of weeks frustration from partners and stakeholders and constituents that from a community perspective, the CENA process seems a bit opaque and confusing without the kind of opportunities to provide input or feedback that would be most useful. So I am glad to hear that you're going to be working to improve this process to make it more transparent and participatory and community centered. And hopefully we can make some moves there. And if not, I think we as a board could revisit whether we need to have a new policy or take action at a board level. But I think it's great to hear that in the meanwhile, you have a plan to engage with some of these stakeholders and hope maybe come back to us with some ideas about how we could improve this process based on community input. So I guess with that, thank you so much, Helen, for the clarifications. I will wait with bated breath for that change letter. The Epicenter is just so important to my community. And I know the staff has been working incredibly hard on CENA. I appreciate everyone's work. And I'm really looking forward to working with our CAO and staff to further discuss and refine these ideas for how we can improve our CENA process. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's go to Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for coming to the board with this list. I want to emphasize some points I made last year on the CENA list, and thank you, Helen, for all the great work and to the team. It's really important that when all the department begin their process for strategic planning facility plan, when you're assessing gaps that may exist in the departments, there needs to be prioritizing for equity in these projects that move forward. And so I still want to elevate some projects that serve as a countywide purpose, even though it might be located in my district. So my priorities for CENA this year were centered on focusing and prioritizing a more regional approach and looking at communities considering food deserts and park green spaces deficiency communities. So I'm really glad to see new items added in the list, like the Food Access Initiative, community gardens, the Tijuana River Valley projects, and a coastal trail for District 1. I did want to share that for the allocation for fiscal year 22-23 Food Access Initiative, I asked that we further explain this allocation to prioritize food desert communities by specifically using the Healthy Place Index quartiles 3 and 4 data to pick these locations and county sites. I think it's really important that we're meeting the need and that community gardens in our county are located in either our own facilities where our communities feel safe and welcome and high utilization, as well as in locations where the need is the greatest and in facilities that have community trust like parks, Livewell centers, partnerships with school districts and the local entities and nonprofit organizations. I think we have an opportunity as a county to lead by example and reimagine in partnership with our community what food sovereignty looks like. And lastly, I think it's great that the departmental sustainability plans presentation took place today, and very happy about the momentum across our entire organization. I also appreciated the memo from Helen last week to the board outlining some of the enterprise restructuring efforts around sustainability, from the sustainability impact statement being added to board letters to the proposed roundtable of sustainability planning for county facilities. And so as we look at our CENA process moving forward, I'd like to see this roundtable weighing in on approaches to the facilities we are funding, new construction, renovations to existing facilities. There should be conversations with our future Chief Sustainability Officer, the decarbonization framework team, our climate action team. And this way, all of our decisions are being aligned and we're not operating in silos. And I think I just want to mention, right, as we're moving forward and looking at our priorities, I have to make sure that on record I say that as we're requesting to anything that we moved up, right, the Tijuana River Valley Active Recreation and Community Park for fiscal year 23-2024, if there opportunity exists to move it up 22-2023 with the FEMA reimbursement fund, if there is an opportunity when the change letter comes forward. The area has been empty for many years, and South Bay has not received enough resources to serve our district. We continue to build jails in South Bay, and I think our kids also need opportunities for them to have, simple things like porta potties and little leagues and opportunities for them to succeed as well. And so we'll continue to fight as well for them, but I appreciate all the work that the staff has done and for the input from our communities, and look forward to supporting these initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Chair. Just one thing, couple things I wanted to point out is that, for the county and the unincorporated areas, we are the only provider of parks and services in the unincorporated areas. In the SENA, although it does mostly unincorporated areas, but we also serve regionally as well. The top item on the list, the over $500 million is the health services complex of the COC up in Kearney Mesa. This is going to be county-wide serving facility. So, it appears when we are funding these projects in cities, the cities should be making these priorities and funding these projects. And I realize the Epicenter is critical. That we need, I don't mind helping out, but I guess I'm curious or just mindful of the fact that in the unincorporated areas, when we now have very limited dollars, to be serving the cities as well, the city of San Diego has $4.6 billion of their own. I don't mind helping out, but I'd love to see, more participation from the cities themselves. And like I said, we do have regional serving needs like the crisis stabilization units, the behavioral health programs, court facilities, the Livewell centers, all these things that we do provide region-wide. And the unincorporated areas are only served by us. So with that comment, though, I'm happy to see that there are completed projects in North County, like the North Coastal Crisis Stabilization Unit, Palomar Mountain Fire Station, that will serve the communities well. I'm also pleased to see that the Star Valley Park for Valley Center is on the list, and the Zero Net Energy project for the rooftop of the Fallbrook Library on the list. There is one project slated for next year that I think that's very important to me, and actually the San Luis Rey River Park acquisition and improvement project. And I'm primarily interested in this one. It's actually on page 2 and hopefully part of the upcoming beneficiary of future FEMA dollars. There's a key piece of property in the San Luis Rey River Park that belongs to Caltrans right now, and they're in the process of selling it. This piece of property allows access to much of the San Luis Rey River Park. And if we don't act by July of this year to acquire this property, it's really going to kind of be detrimental to access to the San Luis Rey River Park. So I realize we're in a tough situation financially. We got cash flow issues, but I really would like to see this also as part of the new upcoming FEMA dollars to go out and purchase this land as quickly as possible. And for that purposes today, I'll leave the SENA as presented as is, but I would like to keep in front of mind the possibility of potentially losing this property if we don't buy it in a short time period. So thank you very much, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you. Thank you to all the comments. I think we're always open to suggestions on better process for how we govern and what we go through as a county. So certainly look forward to continuing to see that. And I want to echo Vice Chair Vargas. It's a little bit the implementation of community gardens, but we've got a little work to do there to make sure it's meeting the needs of the community in the community. And I know there's been some significant investments we've made as a county, ARPA and other things surrounding this. So some work there. And then everyone will have individual needs in their district. And so we've got a ways to go. And we're not at a point of appropriating funding. That'll all happen through the budget process. And we'll continue to work openly and transparently and working on these issues while always looking for ways to better have a process in place that ensures there's public trust in what we're doing. With all that, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations in item 16. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. May I ask the clerk to please call the roll?
Thank you. Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
I'm going to go to our final agenda item today, agenda item 17, surplus real property declarations. I'm really pleased to see this coming forward. When we can look for properties in our region and declare them surplus, it opens up the opportunity for affordable housing that can be built in our county. We know that this is really an important component, and whether we're trying to build homes in the unincorporated in our land use jurisdiction, or we're taking county-owned land anywhere else in the county, we ought to be doing everything that we can to get as many units as possible, safe, secure, stable, affordable housing that we can build. And so I appreciate this. Really excited about the prospects of the former Family Resources Center off 73rd Street. In my district, it's close to transit, close to services. I think will make a great opportunity, and really excited to see the continued progress of things that are already in the works on previous county-owned surplus land. So I'm going to turn it over to staff for a presentation, but I think this is a really good item, and I think we have to continue to look for more ways to be creative in getting more housing built. So let me turn it over to staff for a presentation, and then we'll go to the public speakers.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. You know, as the Chair noted, our state and our county is facing a housing affordability crisis. At the same time, our region has seen the number of persons experiencing homelessness continue to increase, while only producing enough very low-income housing to meet 10% of the current need. The actions your board is being asked to consider today align with the recently approved framework for ending homelessness in the permanent housing domain. Today, the board will consider the opportunity to redevelop certain excess county-owned properties into affordable homes. Here to present today's item and the 3 county-owned properties that are identified for near-term development are David Estrella, our Director for Housing and Community Development Services, and Marco Medved, Director of Development, Department of General Services. David.
Good afternoon, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. 3 county-owned properties have been identified for near-term development, and today we're requesting your authorization to declare these properties as surplus and issue requests for proposals for the development of affordable housing on each of them. A preliminary schedule for all 3 properties is shown on this slide. The actions before you today will declare 3 properties, 5001 73rd Street, 6255 Mission Gorge Road, and 600 East Valley Parkway as exempt surplus land, and under the Surplus Land Act, because they will be leased or sold for the development of affordable housing in accordance with California Government Code. Also, authorize the Department of General Services to release a request for proposals in order to identify a qualified developer for each site. Each property was evaluated by a third-party consultant for the following: current land use and zoning to identify permitted use of the property, opportunities for increased density and affordable housing through local and statewide density bonus programs, and potential building types and affordable housing unit yield that could be developed on each site. Staff will work with the applicable board offices on the RFP priorities and goals to prepare for release. A source selection committee will be assembled to evaluate the proposals and will select the proposal that most closely aligns with the county's goals. County staff will begin work on the development agreements and will return to the board for approval of those agreements, as well as adoption of necessary California Environmental Quality Act findings to construct each project. I will now turn it over to Marco Medved, Director of the Department of General Services, to discuss each site. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The first site is the City of San Diego's College area, Board District 4, and was home to the former Northeast Family Resource Center. The site's now vacant and includes a 22,000 square foot building that will soon be demolished. Based on an independent consultant analysis, the acre and a quarter site is deemed to have strong potential for affordable housing development, as it's in the city's housing solutions and transit priority areas. There are also multiple CEQA streamlining opportunities on this site, as well as density bonuses for affordable housing that could yield between 55 and 158 homes, depending on housing type and income affordability levels. If approved, the RFP will be released to the development community later this month. Qualifications and proposals will be received, reviewed, and awarded by a confidential source selection committee. The next site is located in Grantville area of Board District 2 on Mission Gorge Road in the city of San Diego, and was the former home to public health and emergency medical services. It also includes a surface parking lot across the street on Glacier Avenue. The site's currently vacant and will soon be demolished as well. The site totals 1.3 acres and is deemed to have strong potential for affordable housing development. As with the 73rd Street site, there are multiple CEQA streamlining opportunities and density bonuses which could yield between 24 and 121 homes. The final site is in Board District 5 and was the former home of the North Inland Resource Center in Escondido. The buildings have been demolished already, and the site is currently being utilized for COVID testing under a lease that expires this year. Pending approval of the East Valley Parkway specific plan amendment by the city of Escondido this spring, this almost 2-acre site may accommodate between 57 and 228 affordable homes. So today we are requesting that your board find that the proposed actions are not subject to CEQA review, find that the properties are exempt surplus land, and to authorize the issuance of RFPs for development of affordable housing on these 3 sites. We will return to you for approval of development agreements and adoption of necessary CEQA findings for each site in 2023. And this concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, let's call forward our public speakers on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 2 requests to speak on this item. For those individuals that requested to speak on item 17, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. Also note for the record that we received 22 e-comments on this item, all in favor. For the callers, when it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. We'll ask you to please begin by stating your name for the audio record. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll begin with our first caller.
Hey guys, so I love how there's kids outside wearing masks and exercising. That is so intelligent to make them do that. But that's Dr. Death. Anyway, you guys are really good at spending money and doing absolutely nothing productive with it. So in the past 10 years, you've only met 10% of your low-income housing. You want to produce 68,959 units. You realize that's going to take you 100 years to complete. You guys, I mean, are you still going to be around? I mean, but it won't matter, right? Because you're not even going to be there. I don't know. Maybe we should start living in caskets. So then it's just like when we die, you can just, you know, get rid of us. It's kind of like sustainable. And yeah, it's just like you guys are just really good at spending money. Do you like it? Do you like to spend the people's money and just, you know, waste the time? You're going to like demolish these things. Let's put them in really dense areas. Like, who wants to live in an unincorporated area? Nobody wants to, you know, not live where they work. That's why people live out there. They want to live right where they work. I mean, you know, everything you guys do is such a joke, and it's just so sad that more people can't see it. People need to be paying attention. Please call in tomorrow for the Board of Supervisors meeting, because it's a bunch more of this BS that you guys can figure out what they're doing, but nobody wants to pay attention because it's like, oh my gosh, let's thank the Board of Supervisors. You're so great. I just thank you for killing people. Thank you for doing that. Like, you guys deserve an award for, you know, just destroying San Diego. That's what you're trying to do, right? Is make San Diego destroyed, not like the beacon of everything. Yeah, you guys are great. I just would like to take a moment of silence for all those who, you know, I don't know. I feel like I just want to waste your time right now. I'm just going to keep talking about nonsense instead, because you're not even going to acknowledge the people that have died. Nice.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Hi, this is Jason Robo. Yeah, I think it's ironic that you use the term increased densities when your policies are dumb as hell. I read books, as I mentioned earlier, if anybody even heard it, and there's a great book called Scale by Geoffrey West, and he breaks down how our growth of cities is complete nonsense. So, like, they're an abomination in nature, and then the more you keep growing, the more it's going to increase these negative externalities. So, as a result, like, you guys sit here and kind of stroke yourselves, acting like you're actually helping something like crime and this and that, when it's really just like a mathematical factor from these, like, biological parallels from when, like, something grows too much, then it's going to have these different issues and externalities. Another good book is The Unsettling of America by Wendell Berry, and he talks about how after people settled the country and took over and jacked all land from the indigenous people, that they basically ended up creating their own, like, agrarian, like, settlements, and they were, like, self-sustainable. And now the last thing that we want is
It appears that caller muted their device. We're unable to hear the caller. And Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item.
All right, let's go to Supervisor Desmond, and then we'll go to Supervisor Wasson-Reamer.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to staff for, this is pretty quick. We just, asked you to go out and define properties, and you brought three good ones here before us. So thank you for the quick work in defining these sites. Everybody knows affordable housing is critical and needed across the board. Seniors, veterans, families in our region, the major housing crisis, and it's extremely devastating for working families and those on a fixed income right now. And I think it's very important, though, that we work with our cities to provide affordable housing projects that improve the quality of the communities and provide those a hand up, particularly to those who are priced out of the market rate housing right now. I did meet with all the 5 city council members in Escondido, where the one side, where the site was being proposed, and they were all in on senior housing. So just a heads up there that the senior housing is a big need for them, very amenable to it. They were asking also possibly, I don't know if I don't want to blow up the project, and this is just suggestions, for possibly a senior center component if they were going to have 200 plus senior housing facilities there, if there's some sort of senior center or some sort of senior services that could also be housed in that same particular site would be helpful and beneficial. So senior housing is kind of what they're looking for, and what they all 5 of them nodded their heads and say it'd be great. So I just wanted to put that out there and say thank you very much for the work, and glad to, hopefully it'll move forward quickly. Thanks.
Thank you. Supervisor Wasson-Reamer.
Thank you so much. I just want to really thank staff. I mean, this is great. It's just really good ideas, really thoughtful site selection. And I also, we all know affordable housing is a crisis, and this board has made it clear that addressing that and looking at county surplus land is an important strategy. And you guys have done an amazing job here. So thank you so much. I actually just have a question probably for Marco. I'm curious whether there's a way, or maybe not whether there's a way, but in light of our sustainability plans and sustainability goals and sustainability operating principles that we've adopted over the last year, and particularly the work that has been done with ERUP, et cetera, what your plan is to kind of ensure that sustainability is integrated into the affordable housing design, construction, et cetera.
Thank you, Supervisor. Yes, we can work on criteria in our RFPs to encourage sustainability, and we already have in our current projects, and we can look at the current language that we're working on in these next 3 to make sure that it aligns with the goals that are going forward now.
That would be great. I mean, I think clearly this is where the board's going, and this is where the county's going, and just want to make sure we don't miss the opportunity when we're building important housing for our community to ensure that those sustainability objectives are advanced there as well. So if we can make sure that happens, I think that would be great.
Will do.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you again. Honestly, this is just really fantastic.
All right, I will make a motion to approve the recommendations in agenda item 17. Is there a second?
Happy to second.
We have a motion by myself, second by Supervisor Lawson Remer. Not seeing any additional requests to speak. Let me ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Lawson Remer.
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas.
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors who are present voting aye.
All right, at each meeting, we like to give board members an opportunity to update each other and members of the public on any board committee reports from any boards or commissions or entities you may serve on. Let me ask if anyone has anything they would like to share.
I'll just share something very quick. Just let folks know that San Diego Community Power, we're now in the process of interviewing and hiring for a CEO. So that's great. And hopefully by the next board meeting or the one subsequent, I'll be able to report back on having hired someone.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Action for Spent Fuel Solutions Now, tough acronym, tough name, continues to grow in their support with more elected officials, chambers of commerce, communities of interest, associations, and now many others becoming supporting members of trying to get the spent nuclear fuel off the San Onofre site. The executive committee met with Dr. Huff. She's the acting assistant secretary and principal deputy assistant secretary for the Department of Energy's Office of Nuclear Energy. And on January 27th, we met and discussed the request for information that they're putting out on a consent-based siting of the for interim storage of spent nuclear fuel. They're also going to be, the Action for Spent Nuclear Fuel Solutions is also going to be sending a response to the request for information, primarily focused on the community engagement, interim storage locations, both temporary and permanent. And Congressman Levin's office is going to be working on amending the Nuclear Waste Policy Act to make it possible for siting a permanent repository somewhere in the United States. Another update on Nctd, North County Transit District. The board unanimously approved a letter sent to SANDAG, particularly concerned with the new 2021 regional plan that currently projects the projects that were promised to voters in the Transnet to North County, particularly along the I-5 and 78 corridors, could be removed altogether. So it came from the entire board. The entire board signed on to the letter to SANDAG, saying that funding should be consistent to what was included in the original Transnet ordinance and prioritization of North County projects promised to the voters of Transnet, and also for prioritization funding for work on transit, roads, and other complete corridors for North County in the 2021 regional plan. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Vargas?
Yes. So I just wanted a couple of things. As you know, both Supervisor Anderson and I serve on the Transparency Committee, and so we met in early February. Thank you to staff. We have some recommendations, and we have some changes and recommendations regarding the Public Records Act, retention period, BMO correspondence, public engagement in the county budget process, and some other items. And so staff is going to be reporting back to the full board regarding the final recommendations on April 6th. And I think that'll be, hopefully, the committee will be coming to an end. I think I mentioned to folks earlier today, APCD. Today is the 1-year anniversary of APCDs, which is kind of cool, right? As an independent entity, we have our full-blown new executive director doing a great job. And March 8th, we're going to be having our first meeting with SANDAG, and the focus is going to be both agencies trying to address air quality, incentive programs, environmental justice. And so we're excited about that. And then been excited about having already about 4 meetings with CARB. I don't know, Supervisor Fletcher misses that organization at all, but I'll tell you, there's been a lot of meetings, and excited to share that there's a lot of work that's happening around AB 617. We were able to ensure that the border communities, San Isidro and Otay Mesa, have been selected as part of the communities that are directly, being addressed as part of the communities of concern. We just were able to add $900,000 in community grants to our communities in that particular area. So I'm really excited about that. And then last but not least, doing a lot of work as your representative on NACO, the National Association of Counties, and on CSAC. So I'm the now newly appointed vice chair of the Housing, Infrastructure, and Transportation Committee, and then also vice chair for NACO on pensions, infrastructure, and so doing some work on that. And the Tijuana River Valley is a priority for them as well. So keep elevating some of these issues. And I just want to say thank you to county staff and our intergovernmental affairs team for doing such great work, both in Washington, D.C. and in Sacramento, to elevate our issues at the legislative level. So that is it. Thank you.
All right. That concludes the business before the board. We will proceed with adjournments in memory. We have 2 adjournments in memory. The first will come from Supervisor Lawson Reamer, honoring Morris Katsuso.
Hi, yes, thank you so much, Chair Fletcher. Morris Katsuso was a fighter for social justice and a voice against cruelty in our region. He was the founder of the local Anti-Defamation League and a voice for equity. He passed away earlier this month at UCSD Medical Center after losing a fight to leukemia at the age of 79. But his legacy will continue to live on, and our thoughts are with his family.
Thank you. The next adjournment in memory will be myself and Vice Chair Nora Vargas, honoring and remembering Francine Maige. Today we remember and we mourn. We honor a truly incredible woman, Francine Maige. She meant so much not only to this county, to her family, but to my family as well. For the last 8.5 years, she was the district director for my wife, then Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher. And we had a deep and longstanding relationship and friendship and bond with Francine. She was an absolutely exceptional human being with an infectious joy and spirit who touched everyone that she came in contact with. She was born in the Philippines. She moved to the United States when she was just a little bit over 1 year old. She grew up in Chula Vista, in a community that she loved incredibly dearly. She went to UCLA, where she earned a bachelor's degree in world arts and culture with a concentration in dance studies. She then received her master's degree in management from Harvard University. Francine excelled at everything she did in life. As a dancer, she performed with the San Francisco Ballet, and the Mikhail Baryshnikov and the White Oak Dance Company. She was named the inaugural poet in resident for the New Americans Museum. In addition, she was such a leader and foundation in San Diego's Filipino community, a special advisor to San Diego's Honorary Philippine Council. She wrote a weekly column for the Filipino Press, was president of the Filipino American Chamber of Commerce of San Diego County, and so much more. In 2019, tragically, Francine was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, despite being under the age of 40 and having never smoked in her life. She faced this diagnosis the same way she lived her life, with enormous grace and using what she went through in an effort to try and help others. She worked hard to bring awareness about the early signs, complications, and treatments for this aggressive cancer. And throughout her health battle, she continued to work and continued to try to help constituents and try to continue to make a difference. And I know how inspiring she was throughout the last few years to everyone who knew her. As my wife said, Francine was not just a good person, she was the best person. And we send our condolences to her parents, her sister, her brother-in-law, her nieces, and her nephews. She is missed terribly, but will always be remembered. And I'd like to turn it over to Vice Chair Vargas, who is joining in this adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher, and thank you for the opportunity to share this with you, because Francine meant so much to so many of us in the South Bay, and for your beautiful words. It's really, I think, a difficult loss for all of our community. Francine was the embodiment, I mean, everything you said and more, right? She was the embodiment of the values of South San Diego County and the resilient and nurturing nature of the people in our district. And as you mentioned, after she left from Chula Vista High School, went to college, she came back to San Diego County to give back to her community. And if you knew Francine, she was so proud and so dedicated. She was so proud to be Filipina, and she was so proud of her community, where She was selected as an inaugural delegate to the Filipino American Young Leaders Program, and she was mentored by Ambassador Jose Cuisia and the Filipino Diplomatic Corps. She had a passion for the arts, as it was mentioned, and youth combined, and she became one of South County's most popular dance instructors. She was affectionately known across San Diego to many of her former students as Miss Francine. And as the chair mentioned, I met her when she was the district director to then Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez when the Assemblymember was with her. And the thing I always remember about her, she always had a wonderful smile. And no matter how much, whatever was happening, she always responded with a smile. She always figured out how to get you an answer. She was always amazing, and she was always there for her team. She was always trying to produce programs and inviting us and making sure that there was resources available for the community. And through the pandemic, even though she was sick, she was still there trying to make sure that people had what they needed. And so, she was somebody who was really, the epitome of what South Bay leadership is all about. And so her leadership will continue to be in every one of us in our community. Her legacy will continue through the numerous youth that she mentored. She was devoted to her family. She leaves behind her loving parents, her sister, and her nephews. And her loving spirit, who touched all of us, will continue to inspire generations to come. So I hope that we all remember her positivity, her courage, after she battled so many years of cancer. And so today, we remember her, and as we adjourn today's meeting in her honor and her memory, I hope that we keep her and her family in our prayers, and her beauty as well. So thank you, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vice Chair. With that, we will resume non-agendized public communication.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. There are 9 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. That's 9 remaining requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. For those individuals that requested to speak, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll begin with our first caller. I'll ask you to please state your name for the audio record. And again, you'll have 2 minutes to address the board.
Good afternoon. This is Peggy Walker. I've worked in alcohol, tobacco, and drug use education prevention 25 years, and daily I see the dawning destruction of addiction. I came today because of something Supervisor Fletcher said recently in regards to drug use and harm reduction. If there's one parent who doesn't bury a child, everything we've done is worth it, he said. But can't you see, Supervisor, how this statement contradicts your unrelenting push for marijuana commercialization that promotes and profits from addiction, causing injury and death? Young people are dying. Last month, locally, my close friends buried a 24-year-old son who overdosed. Another young man followed shortly from an OD. 2 mothers lost sons to marijuana-related suicide. A father and son died in a marijuana-related DUI. That is just the tip of the iceberg. There are reported 220 marijuana DUI fatalities daily in the U.S. Behind the pretense to provide for public needs, the marijuana policies you and many on your board support have paradoxical effect. Harm reduction may connect addicts with safe places to use, but the harm done is not eliminated. We need to help the addicted, yes, but we must take preventive action to avoid adding to their numbers, especially adding our young people. Shouldn't you be weighing the overwhelming data and scientific evidence that document that marijuana use is associated with addiction and higher mortality? Prevention would have better served the 100,000 victims that SAMHSA says died last year of overdose. And so often, marijuana is the gateway drug.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Kevin Stevenson. So I would like to first apologize for my cursing earlier. That was my bad. But I think I made my point earlier pretty clear. And the reason I'm speaking on non-agenda is because I just want to address something that's been on my mind regarding the comments that have been spewed lately. Now, obviously, I'm in full support of the First Amendment, and I want everyone to be able to speak their mind. But come on, talk of being tyrant, this rhetoric of, oh, taking away our freedoms and we're coming for you, and come on, guys, it's got to stop. This is not valid criticism. This is not sharing a difference of opinions. This is like full-throated attacks against our democratically elected officials. I mean, people like Amy Reckert are welcome to run for office. I mean, despite the fact no one will vote for her because she's crazy. But, I mean, we got to do something about this, about these attacks that these people are doing, these attacks on our elected officials, because they're going way too far. And the talk about, oh, COVID's over, COVID's not a big deal, is also not based on any fact. It's just a bunch of busybody people who don't like being mildly inconvenienced by wearing a mask over their faces. And we need to tone things down. We really, for the sake of society, for the sake of all of our sanity, we really, really need sanity. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now hear from the next caller.
Ann Riddle. I came to public comment today because I wanted to speak to the press release that the sheriff and the DA put out regarding their success in shutting down illegal pot dispensaries last week. All of us in the community, particularly in the unincorporated area of the community, appreciate this, but I was concerned about the statement that was made by Chair Fletcher that as soon as there's more pot shops in the unincorporated area, that will also reduce the black market. And I wanted to speak to that black market concept since I've had a front row seat for the last 4 decades regarding that black market. And they, of course, refer to themselves as a legacy market because they've existed traditionally, as I said, for 4 decades. And it's important that you realize that it's going to take resource-intensive efforts on the part of law enforcement that needs to be continuous, and we'll hope for that, but that we remember that the illicit market is enormous and that it's efficient and that predates any proposition and any legislation, and they have long established their networks. They have the ability to get right back up after a raid because they keep their cash off-site, and they obscure their ownership through a series of management companies. They have learned to operate illicitly, and they prefer to keep it that way. They have learned to live in the shadow of the light. I mentioned that to you going forward as we look at marijuana businesses in the backcountry, that you are not going to put the black market. And if this is a reason for bringing to the unincorporated area marijuana businesses, it is the wrong reason because it is not going to accomplish that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Hi. And the fight continues, the COVID era mandates and things like the mandatory teleconferencing for a disease which, for the most part, is treatable at home. COVID plagues have been around for centuries. For instance, the Russian flu pandemic of 1889, which I wrote to you about, Wilma, and the Athenian plague of 414 BC probably was also COVID, and COVID's been around for 10,000 years at least. Yet you all would rather impose and enforce these mandates, delaying medical procedures which are actually necessary, reduce or intimidate the workforce so that a lot of them just quit, reduce safety, staffing of police, fire and hospitals, create huge supply chain issues, and rampant inflation. Nathan, maybe you can tell me, who will enforce all these things when COVID reverts back to coronavirus? Will I be arrested for public coughing? And I know you have my email and my phone number. If you'd want to comment now. Anyway, next, the law
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. For the record, that speaker was Paul Henkin. Chair Fletcher, that concludes the comments on non-agenda public communication for this session this afternoon.
All right, that concludes the business before the board today. We will adjourn into closed session. We will meet in about 5 minutes in closed session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We stand adjourned.
The board will now recess into closed session to consider those matters listed under item 18 on today's agenda. If there are any reportable actions, they will be reported out during the planning and land use session of this meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022.